Good evening. Today is the 14th day of November 2022. A lot has happened since you and I were together last week. And not only did we have our election, and most of the votes have been counted, but now it's time to take a closer look at what all of us can be doing to create less division in our society and create a better place for all of us. That's our topic on tonight's Hamilton Report. Well, as I said, a lot has happened in the last week, and I want to begin by saying a very special thank you to all of the candidates who ran as Democrats here in Oklahoma. It was a hard fought battle, and everyone who put their name on the ballot has a lot to be grateful for. And we, rather, all have a lot to be grateful for them because they stepped up, they made a decision, made a commitment, and made the sacrifices it took. So, congratulations to everyone who ran, and a very special thanks to everyone who helped a candidate this year, whether it was a great deal of time volunteering or a little time, whether it was a contribution or writing postcards. You all helped, and that makes me feel really good. But now, where are we? The election is over. We do have municipal elections coming up next year, and recreational marijuana will be on the ballot in March of 2023. But there's still a little time between now and that election. So, what can we be doing? Well, I'll tell you this: your state party is hard at work crunching the numbers from this election and mapping forward how together we can make a positive impact in Oklahoma. And that's true also of our many county parties. Tonight, for example, the Cleveland County Democratic Party is meeting. Our chair, Alicia Andrews, is joining them via Zoom. Tomorrow night is the Oklahoma County Democrats are meeting at 6:30, and that's true all around the state. So there are plenty of ways to get involved. But I want us to think for a moment together this evening about what it means to live in a country, in a state that is so incredibly divided. I had hoped to have a psychologist or psychiatrist on with me tonight to help us address this, but it's just you and me. So I'm going to count on your comments this evening. And please feel free to share comments as we go, because I need to know what your thinking is. I'll tell you, some days leading up to the election, I would wake up, go on social media or to the New York Times or the Daily Oklahoman, and the amount of vitriol that I saw was just overwhelming. Now, I need to take ownership because a lot of what I posted on social media could not be described as kind or gentle. I called names where I thought it was appropriate. I called out lies where I knew for a fact someone was lying. But I wonder now if there wasn't a better way of doing that. And I wonder how each of us can take a position and an action to create a kinder, gentler place for all of us to live. Now, politics is politics, and it gets nasty sometimes. So while I own my own mistakes, I will acknowledge that in the heat of the moment, we all say and do things that perhaps we wouldn't if our heads were a little cooler. And that's something that I need to practice on my own. But I wonder how we got here. I was speaking with a therapist from New York today, Lorraine Vestris, and I asked her, I said, Lorraine, how did we get here? How is it that we got a Donald Trump who so incredibly divided this nation? And she said, well, I think it had to happen. And I was stunned by that response. And she went on to say, it had to happen because we needed to bring everything to the surface. And I've been saying that racism did not begin with Donald Trump. Rather, he just provided a license for everyone to say out loud what they had been thinking quietly, or at least some of them. But it didn't begin with him. And I'll share a very personal story. I had an aunt who was white, and she was in the hospital dying of lung cancer. And we went to visit her. And as we were leaving, she stopped and she called my husband's name, and he's a black man. And she said, "Your president," speaking of President Obama, "is the devil." And I thought, what an incredible sense of weight one must have to carry that kind of loathing, that kind of anger towards someone. So, as I said, it did not begin with Donald Trump, but his outrageousness toward handicapped people and the LGBTQ community, Democrats writ large, and certainly women. It gave people a license to say things in public that, for one, I never thought should have been said. But as Lorraine said to me today, it needed to happen. We had to get it out in the open. And I'll tell you, it's a bit like therapy. If you think about it, if you've ever been in counseling for any amount of time at all, you think everything is fine, and then you realize that there's something that you're holding on to that's deep. You're angry, you're upset about something that you weren't even aware of until it's unearthed. And I think that that's really what happened during the 4 years of the former president. Well, unfortunately, it didn't die when he left Washington. Instead, it continues to foment. The big lie continues to spread. And sadly, it's spread very often and very loudly from members of Congress. That kind of division does not help in any situation. It doesn't help a family. It doesn't help coworkers. And it certainly doesn't help society. So then what do we do? Practice random acts of kindness. And I think that's a wonderful philosophy. But we need to look at what that means, actually, because doing something kind for someone is a lot more than paying for someone's Starbucks in the car behind you while you're getting your own. It's a nice gesture. But believe me, if they're already in line to spend $4 or $5 or $6 or more on a cup of coffee, they can afford to do so. What could we be doing for someone less fortunate? What could we be doing to understand the plight of someone else? I know what it's like leaving work late in the evening, stopping at 7-Eleven and having 7 people ask me for money or for food. Now, I will often buy food, but rarely money anymore. So I know what that's like. But instead of getting angry, I wonder if we can't just take a moment, take a breath, and recognize that these are people too. The reason all this is coming up for me now is as we approach the holidays, we are going to find ourselves in situations, social situations, family situations, where we are around people with differing views from our own. Do we just simply stay away from all hot button issues? Well, for some people, I think that's probably the best advice that we could offer. But for others, I wonder if there's not some middle ground that we can come to. Oh, I know that sounds impossible. If you're on one end of the spectrum and someone else is on the other, how can you talk kindly, politely to someone and listen to their concerns, their ideas? I'm not suggesting that you put up with racism or misogyny or homophobia. Those things have no place in our society. But I wonder if on a more personal level, we couldn't begin to put ourselves in someone else's position and wonder what made them think the way they do in the first place. So I'm asking you to join in with me and tell me, what are you doing? What can we all do? Or maybe you haven't thought of this before, but think about it now and put your comments, put your thoughts in the comments, because I want to take this time to share with you and for you to share with others. Because whether we like it or not, we are all forced into situations where we have to deal with people who are different from us, think differently from us, have different values. And through the election process, our chair said over and over and over, vote your values. But I'll tell you something. This morning in a meeting, something came up that is very dear to me, something that's very important in my own walk. And yet I hesitated about whether or not we should say anything, because I didn't want to be screamed at by Republicans and certainly not by Democrats. I'll tell you, that was a good lesson for me, because I was about to compromise my own principles for the sake of keeping things calm. There are times, I suppose, when we all have to do that, but it's not something we have to do all day, every day. What are the things that bring a bit of kindness in your life? Well, we all have seen the endless videos on YouTube of Karens, which is a pejorative now for entitled people, and the way that they bully and push and shove their way through life. And at first, it's rather fun to watch those. I got strung out on them for a while. But the reality is that's a pretty sad existence. If you have to make someone else feel bad to make yourself feel better. And yet, that's what we see. My amazing philosopher of a husband has said this: as long as there's someone behind you, you're okay. You can be the poorest person except for one and still feel good about yourself. You can be the least educated or the most educated except for the one behind you. As long as you're ahead, one step ahead, then that's a plus, and you can feel good about yourself. I think we need to re-examine how we treat one another. And I'm not talking about our friends or our coworkers, the people we hang out with, or the people we enjoy spending time with. I'm talking about people on a daily basis. Road rage in Oklahoma is out of control. I've seen people jump out of their cars, beat on the hood of another car. I've seen people get out and threaten, screaming at someone. And because there are so many guns here, you never know what could happen. But we've got to collectively make a concerted effort to stop being so trigger happy. I don't mean that just with guns. I mean it in a much more figurative way as well. If we stand at the precipice of anger all of the time, then we will find things to become angry about. And goodness knows, there's plenty to be angry about. I'm angry over some aspects of the election. I'm angry over some things that happened. But it's what we do with our anger and how we channel that anger that can make a difference. I've seen lots of good ideas about spending the next month, each day, putting another food item in a bag and then delivering those to a food pantry or a food bank very close to Christmas. And that's a great gesture. Unfortunately, it doesn't help as much as a small cash gift. It may not, that cash gift may not make us feel quite as good, but when you consider the buying power of a large food bank, it's much more effective and more people will get fed that way. And so, what else are we doing in our lives that can make us feel good and at the same time not make someone else feel bad? If you've spent any time in a supermarket recently, you have certainly seen people being rude to cashiers. If you could find a store that still has cashiers, I'm speaking of tired. I am tired of checking out my own groceries and then having to prove with the receipt that I actually paid for them, although I've been on camera the whole time I've been in the store. But I see people taking out their aggressions on cashiers. I was at a sandwich shop last week and someone threw their sandwich across and threw it at an individual who was making the sandwiches. And there is no cause for that. Children behave better than so many adults. I'm going to put this up. This is a long post, but I want to read it to you. I share a story of knowing Patrick, my mom's friend, as a young kid. Patrick was gay. He was so kind to me. So when I first heard about AIDS and the rhetoric around gays, it didn't make sense to me. As a kindergartner, I knew better because I knew Patrick. I'm thankful to my mom for showing me all people. I've continued that with my own children. I'm happy to see my children accept all people and standing up when they see others not doing the same. Sandra Valentine, I've got to hand it to you. You're doing something very worthwhile in the way that you're raising your children. What about those of us who don't have kids? I think we start by modeling with our own behavior. We start by words of kindness. We start by saying hello, good morning. I stop at the same place every single morning of every week. And the reason I do that is because the clerk behind the counter calls me by name, smiles, greets me warmly, and I'm about my business. That whole interaction usually takes no more than 2, maybe 3 minutes. And that includes me asking about her family, her job. But that's sometimes the best part of my day. That brief interaction with someone whose last name I don't know. I don't know where she grew up. I know she has 2 teenage children, but that's just because of our conversations. But my life is better because of her. And I'd like to think that at the end of the day, I've made someone else's life better because of something that I've said or done. And honestly, friends, it doesn't matter if we ever find out that we've made a difference or not. As long as we've given it our best shot, as long as we've tried to be kind, as long as we've spoken a good word to someone or offered a bit of encouragement. Sandra pointed out a beautiful story of love and acceptance that was taught to her by her mother. We can teach by our own actions. I am fortunate to work with a staff and leadership, people who care about not just each other, but about the greater good. That's what keeps us all motivated and coming to work, doing our best work possible. And that's a reward. We don't do it for the money, goodness knows. But there's something at the end of the day when we say, maybe I made a difference, a little difference in someone else's life. Last Friday, I picked up the phone, and it was the third phone call I'd had that morning, and all of them were similar. And this man started to curse, and I cursed him back, and I slammed the phone down. Was that necessary? No. Did it make me feel better? Oh, for a split second, maybe. But then I felt ashamed. I could have done better. And since that moment, I've been thinking about what I can do better, how I can be better, and not roll around in the mud with someone else. Friends, consider the people in your life, the people that you run into contact with every day, or those that you see from time to time, or those that you haven't talked to in a while. Pick up the phone, call someone just to let them know you're thinking about them, or send them a text, depending on your age, I guess. But how wonderful to just get a text that has no reason except to say, I'm thinking about you and wanted to say hi. As we get busier and busier each day between now and the end of the year, we're going to find ourselves in stressful situations. We're going to find ourselves listening to chaos because, frankly, chaos is all around us. Tomorrow, 45 is promising his big surprise announcement. You know what? I don't care what it is. I'm not going to be excited one way or another. I'm not going to scream and yell if it's what I think it is. Instead, I'm going to focus on what I can do to be better. But it's more than just a one-off. It's more than one of us or two of us. It really does require all of us saying, public education is very important. I had a good education and I want the same thing for someone else. Or my public education wasn't as good as it should have been. So I want to help make sure it's better for someone else. But on a daily basis, we all have the opportunity to be a little calmer, a little kinder, a little gentler. And that includes to ourselves. And I bring that up because so often we are just running, that we fail to take time to take care of us. And we're running on empty. It makes it awfully hard to care for someone else. When we are pushed to our own limits, our emotions are frayed, we're fragile. So what do we do to take care of ourselves? It's a big question. And I'm going to ask you to think about that and ponder on that, as will I, because I'm not good at self-care and I need to be better. And I need you to be better at taking care of you. The amount of effort and energy I see from people in my life that go out of their way to make life better for others, it's humbling. And it serves as an inspiration for me because I want to be those people. I want to think very seriously about how my words, my actions help or hurt someone else. There are times when we have to just walk away from a relationship or a friendship, walk away from a family member with whom we'll never get along. But those are not the norm. Those are the exceptions. What can we do for the people in our lives who do matter, who we do care for? We can start in our own little circles. And as we do good, other people will do good. As we speak positively about others, we'll find that other people will start doing the same thing too. And then those circles grow, and they grow some more. I'm not suggesting that we will heal the divisions in our country. Certainly not overnight. It's going to take time. They say time heals all wounds. Well, I think it takes more than that. I think it takes effort, not just time. We have to collectively be about making this a better world. We have to quit denying things like climate change or poverty or homelessness. We have to quit thinking along the lines of, well, I paid for my own student debt, they should have to pay too. We need to practice a little more generosity of spirit, of kindness. I can't expect Republicans to do that if we're not willing to do it first. And so, my charge to each of us tonight, and this is me chief among us, think about what we can do to create an atmosphere, a world that's a little brighter, that's a little happier. We've had our first snow in Oklahoma this winter. It's not even winter yet. But in those first flakes, I had the same reaction that I did when I was a little boy. And I imagine that many of you did as well. There's something about the quiet of snow that causes us to be caught up in the magic of the moment. We can recreate those magic moments every day. The people we encounter, the people we run into, the people that call us, the people we call. Oh, you'll still get angry with the car warranty people. I do. But I'm talking about everybody else. The folks who deserve a moment of your time, a bit of your kindness. Well, I've talked a lot this evening, and I'm grateful that you were here to listen. I appreciate so much you allowing us into your home every Monday evening at 6:30. This is my favorite time of the week. And I hope that something that we've discussed this evening will inspire you to think creatively, to think seriously about loving yourself, taking good care of you, and taking good care of everyone you encounter along the way. If we all do that, I guarantee you the next election cycle will be a whole lot better, not just in terms of individual wins, but a win for all of us. Thank you for being with us this evening. I'm deeply appreciative. Hope you have a great week. Stay weather aware, and do take some time to be really good to yourself this week. And I hope to see you again next Monday evening at 6:30. From all of us at the Oklahoma Democratic Party, I'm Scott J. Hamilton, thanking you for being with us. Good night.